Hello friends, and welcome to Escaping the Mouse with your host, me, Breck Roll. Alright, we're going to do another segment of Bytes and Nibbles with Breck today. I kind of got up this morning and I've been thinking, my mom gave me a whole bunch of wild rice for Christmas last year, and I really need to start doing some stuff with wild rice. Now, I've thought about this before a number of times, and I've kind of dug through some of the Instant Pot recipe books that I have looking for wild rice recipes, and haven't really found a lot of them. But I started thinking this morning, you know what? I've got some little pamphlet that I got from Minnesota many years ago that's just filled with all sorts of wild rice recipes. So I dug that out of my collection this morning and found something that looked actually pretty good. It wasn't really designed with the Instant Pot in mind, but it seemed to me that I have learned enough about the Instant Pot that I can modify the recipe to work with the Instant Pot. So we're going to do that. Now, when I actually post the description of the recipe in the description below, I'll put both versions in there so you can try it the regular old-fashioned way, or you can try it with the Instant Pot. But I'm going to do it with the Instant Pot because I like doing whatever I can with that. So let's start with our recipe. Our recipe today is called pork chops and wild rice casserole, and that sounded pretty good. I looked at the ingredients, it looked pretty good, and here are those ingredients. Obviously, if it can be anything called pork chops and wild rice, it's got to have pork chops and wild rice. So I pulled out some of this Minnesota wild rice that I got from my mom for Christmas. If you're interested, it's from a company called North Bay Trading Company. You can look for that online. You can buy all sorts of good stuff there. And I'm going to use that for this. It also has some regular white rice in it, some celery, an onion, some bell peppers, a large can of whole tomatoes, and salt and pepper to taste. Let's get going. Now we're going to start off preparing the rice in the Instant Pot. Now, if you have an Instant Pot, you know that you got a handy dandy little lookup chart like this that comes with this, and this shows you how to cook a whole bunch of different things. And for the most part, this is a good lookup chart, but I have found that its approach to wild rice isn't anywhere close to being realistic. It says 20 to 25 minutes cooking time and a rice to water ratio of 1 to 2. That isn't anywhere near enough. Maybe I'm using a variety of wild rice that's a little different than what they're used to, but when I do my long grain wild rice from Minnesota, I find that I need about a 10 to 1 water ratio, and I need to cook it for about an hour. So that's what I've done is I'm going to use a 10 to 1 water ratio. So I'm going to have 1.5 cups of rice. It's 1 cup of the wild rice and half a cup of the regular white rice. So that's going to be about 15 cups of water in the Instant Pot, and we're going to cook that for about an hour. So in we go with the white rice and water, and we're ready to go. So let's put the lid on here and start this up. Alright, so we're going to do a pressure cook. Now there is actually a rice option on here, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to do a pressure cook. We're going to set the timer for an hour. Give it a second to get up there. And we're going to turn off the keep warm function, and we're going to let that go. It's already at high pressure, so we'll let that run for an hour, and I'll catch up with you then. Alright, an hour has passed on our rice, and we're going to quick release. Pressing the release button, keeping our finger away from there. And when the little pink button drops, it's safe to remove the lid. Always remember there's a little bit of steam coming out of there initially, so be ready for that. Now I'm going to rinse the rice through a colander just to kind of drain all the water out of it. I'm actually going to also kind of rinse this a little bit because wild rice tends to get a little bit dirty, so you want to kind of rinse it a few times. So since we're not going to really need this yet for a little while, I'm going to leave this here for now, and we're going to move on to the next step. So next I'm going to put my Instant Pot into saute. I've actually cleaned out the inner bowl a little bit because we're going to use this thing several times here. And what I'm going to do is I've got a cup of celery, half a cup of chopped onion, and a couple of tablespoons of butter. And we're basically just gonna soften the onions and celery a little bit in the saute mode. Then we're gonna mix that in with our rice. All right, I think that looks pretty good. I'm gonna turn off the saute mode here just briefly. And we're gonna transfer that into the same bowl that I have the rice in. And then we're gonna come back here and we're gonna go back into saute mode and we're gonna brown our pork chops. Now that I get everything mixed in here, I'm just gonna kind of stir it all together, get it all mixed in together. You need two hands to do that, so you'll have to use your imagination. So at this point, I've gotten my pork chops all set up. It's kind of optional how you want to deal with it in terms of salt and pepper. I elected not to go with any salt, but I added a significant amount of pepper to both sides. I've cleaned out the inner pot on my Instant Pot again. We're going to put it back into saute mode. And we're going to add a little bit of olive oil. And we are going to brown my pork chops just a little bit. Just to give it that little bit of flavor here. So we're going to let the oil heat up a little bit. Then we're going to brown the pork chops. And then we're going to take our pork chops. I've got boneless pork chops. They're about a 1/2 inch thick. The recipe says use 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch. So this should just about be right. And I'm just going to put them in there a little bit. And we're going to brown them a little bit on each side before we move on to the next stage. Oh yeah, that's starting to look pretty good. Give it a little bit more on the second side, and then we'll put it aside and we'll do the two remaining. Alright, so there's our pork chops and our rice mixture. Now next what we're going to do is we're going to put a thin coating of the rice mixture in the bottom of a casserole dish. Now the recipe I have actually says a 9x12 casserole dish. I'm thinking that must be a typo. I've never heard of a 9x12, and honestly I'm not sure that's going to be big enough to hold all this anyway. So I'm going to use a traditional 9x16 casserole dish, and like I said, we're going to spread a small thin coating of the rice mixture over that, and then we're going to place the pork chops on top of the rice mixture, and then we're going to use the remaining rice mixture to kind of fill in the gaps between it. Alright, so I got about a 1/2 inch thick layer of the rice mixture at the bottom of the casserole dish. Yeah, the recipe didn't call for it specifically, but I also sprayed it with a little cooking spray beforehand. And now I am just going to add my pork chops. And we just kind of want to get them nice and spread around in there. Want to get them all in there, so... And then we're just going to spread the rest of the rice mixture around. It's going to be like grouting stones in here. So I'll just get in here and do that, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a minute. Yep, just like grouting in stone or tile in your house. Just fill in all the gaps between all the pieces of meat, and you're good to go. Now comes the next step. Alright, so now I've cut my bell pepper up into 1/4 inch thick rings, and we put one ring on top of each pork chop. Let's see what comes next. Now next I've opened up my can of whole canned tomatoes, and it actually says put 1 tomato on top of each of the pork chops, but there's more tomatoes in the can than there are pork chops, so I just kind of threw them all in there, and you know, some of them are on the pork chop and some of them aren't, so that's just all a little extra flavor. And then finally I've taken the juice that was in the can and mixed it with 1/2 cup of water, and we're just going to kind of pour that over the top. That'll kind of keep everything from drying out. Alright, I think that's going to look good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to preheat the oven for 350 degrees, and we're going to cook this. And by the way, I think I was right to do a 9x16 pan. 9x12 pan, if such a thing exists, this would have been overflowing. So this is going to be just about right. Alright, our oven is preheated to 350 degrees, and we're going to put this sucker in. Now we're going to let this cook for 1.5 to 2 hours in length. So we're going to have to kind of keep an eye on this. If it gets to the point where it's drying out a little bit, we can put a little bit more water in there. We can also cover it up. So we'll kind of keep an eye on this over the next hour and a half to 2 hours, but we're going to start, I think, with an hour and a half, and we'll start like that. All right, so we're about an hour into the cooking time, and it's looking pretty good so far, so we'll just let it keep doing its thing. All right, time's up. Time to bring this thing out and give it its taste test. All right, taste test time. I'll admit this smells really good. Now, I was a little bit apprehensive about bell peppers. I'm not a huge fan of bell peppers, but we'll see anyway. Yeah, that's actually pretty good. I do like the wild rice in it. The bell peppers aren't overpowering, which is a good thing. I think maybe you kind of cook the flavor out of them. I guess if I'm going to eat a pepper, I like it to have a little bit more bite in it. And that's something I'm actually kind of noticing too. I'd probably improve this a little bit. Maybe mix a little Tabasco sauce or something in there to give it a little bit more zing. But other than that, it's pretty good. No real complaints about it. Like I said, I figured this would probably be a good thing just based on reading the recipe, because I looked at it and just about everything in it looked pretty good. So yeah, definitely not bad. It's a very fulfilling meal. Definitely would try it again. So give this one a shot if you'd like. Like I said, I'll put the recipe in the description below. I'll put both versions of the recipe, both my Instant Pot version and the actual original version as it appears in the little booklet I have. But I would definitely try this one and give it a shot if you'd like. So I think that's all that I have for today. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you next time on Escaping the Mouse. Bon appetit!